y'all, I'm Ellen. We've been super inspired by our journeys of self-healing and discovery.
And I'm Sam, and we want to share our experiences with you to help you get curious about yourself, reconnect, and get intentional about your life so you know what makes you happy.
Welcome to Woo New, the podcast. I am incredibly excited to introduce our guest today, Charlene Chang, who I've had the pleasure and honor of being in this mystery mentorship program with Mimi Young, with Charlene. And we got a chance to just connect, just the two of us recently, when I started learning about Charlene and just all the wonderful things that she is doing with her life and with her I want to call it an offering. And this offering is called êtrechar. And we'll go into what êtrechar is and all of the wonderful things that she is all about. But the one thing I do want to kind of say before we begin is that I love the way Charlene describes herself as a light worker of spaces. And I think just that one little term, that one definition just speaks volumes to me. And I think coming out of the lockdown with the pandemic, where all of us became acutely aware and more conscious about the spaces that we live in, the spaces that we work in, all of that, I feel like what Charlene does with her work is so vital and important right now. So welcome, Charlene. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a great pleasure and honor to be here.
So I think, with all these conversations, we always dive into the work, but there's always a backstory that kind of leads really well into what it is that you are doing now in your work with êtrechar. And I feel like hearing your story of healing and just your personal journey of how you even got to this place would be a really great way to kick it off.
That sounds wonderful. When I think about where it began, I have to think about perhaps it started in a different lifetime, but truly the duration of my life in which the healing, the transformation, and the growth started to take place certainly does feel like a lifetime away within this particular lifetime. To give you some background, I basically am the child of an immigrant Taiwanese father and a mother who is a refugee. She's Chinese Vietnamese. And I can't speak to my story without first acknowledging theirs, because their story is a part of my own. And that in itself has been one of the most beautiful sort of awakenings during my own transformation that I was also realized, which is that my own story isn't singular, it isn't isolated, that in fact I do have to engage, connect, remember, and honor my ancestors who've come before me. And I grew up in a 3-generational household. I grew up in a household with my grandparents, with my parents, and my siblings as well. My first language outside of English was Cantonese. My second language that I learned was the language of ritual, which was taught to me through my maternal grandmother. And my third language, I suppose, that I learned was the language of dance. I feel that those 3 things basically held me at the very beginning of what became this period of immense transformation, death, and rebirth My first career, in fact, began in the area of public health. I received a master's in Latin American studies and a master's in public health. So all throughout my early adulthood, I was devoted to learning about other cultures, Latin America, Spanish-speaking cultures, and was just so in love and just in such appreciation of the amount of diversity there was within the culture in Latin America. So I devoted myself entirely to that work, the work of health, promoting the well-being of communities here in Southern California and also in other countries. It was near the end of my graduate programs when, life started to just throw up red flags left and right. And it took me bright pink neon signs flashing in my face.
Yeah.
As it always does.
As it always does. As it turns out, I realize now that I'm not the only one who has this experience. The first sign was feeling, or actually being told that I had ulnar tunnel syndrome, which is this radiating pain through my fingers, my wrist, and into my forearms on both hands.
Oh my God.
Wow.
And I was like, wait, if I can't type, and I spent my entire life up until that point on a computer, writing, reading, working, doing everything. And I thought, okay, if I don't have my hands, what is going to happen to me? And then from there, I started to experience anxiety, heart palpitations. I remember the very first moment I felt sort of this panic attack take place. And it sort of everything was seized at that moment. And I thought, oh my gosh, this is it. Like, I can't breathe. I don't know what's happening. I need to go to the hospital. And I soon realized after that very moment that I was actually developing anxiety as a result of the amount of stress that I was experiencing.
Wow.
And so I basically went to see a therapist, and it was my first experience. I had to work through a lot of the social stigma around that at the time. And even the act of seeking out help alone, that was a big lesson in my life. And seeking out mental health at that was yet another. There was just layers of social and cultural stigmas around that I had to work through. And when I finally did receive help, it just opened my heart and my mind, and I just developed so much more clarity about what was happening to me. And when I told you about the neon signs, that wasn't all. Of course, I felt these things and I thought, okay, my initial thought, my rational mind said, okay, I just need to seek out, health resources. I need to seek out the services that I needed. Being in public health, I actually knew very clearly what that looked like. And I also, in my public health program, learned how to approach health conditions and health problems from a very well-rounded and holistic perspective. The other thing that happened at that period of my life that I didn't know at that moment was that I was also going through my Saturn Return.
Oh, wow.
In which I had experienced the death of my maternal grandmother and the breakup of a long-term relationship. And I nearly did not finish my one of my master degree programs. And I was essentially it felt like I was at the very bottom of a pit,
Yeah.
and I didn't know what to do. Everything up until that point about my life was planned. Every single hour of the day, weeks in advance, even up to about 6 months in advance, was planned to the hour. And I would always, fall back on, okay, like, what can I do now? What can I do that day? And filling every single minute of my day with the act of doing. And I kept doing, even after having been diagnosed with ulnar tunnel syndrome, anxiety. I kept doing because it was the only thing I had known at that time to do.
Right.
Did you kind of relate what was happening to you? Like, I know there was a connection that you made between your stress that you were experiencing, but had it come forward or into your consciousness that it was anything deeper, like emotional wounding and things like that had come through yet?
At that point, it hadn't. I simply knew that I was perhaps just becoming like burnt out from the 2 consecutive master's programs that I was in. I figured, this was the very beginning of that pivotal transformational point in which I realized that those components were actually a part of the story.
Right.
Gotcha.
So it was the culmination of the Saturn return, of then the compounding of the death of someone who was so close to me and so important to me, and the loss of this long-term romantic relationship, or just the ending of it. And then after that, I experienced basically my body broke out in hives.
Oh, wow.
And so that's just basically these bumps that are super itchy. I thought maybe it's their bed mites or something, but it turns out they're hives, and I had not known anything about hives until that point. And so I went forward knowing, okay, something's happening. I am not well in my body. I felt at that moment that there was something I needed to do, and the only thing I knew that I needed to do at that moment was basically to shift, to stop, to pause. And so after my degree programs, I essentially took a year. I intended to take a year off. And in fact, what ended up happening was I started to look for work because I thought, I need to find a job after finishing these 2 graduate degree programs. It needs to show for something, right?
Right.
So I went straight to applying for jobs, and I applied for jobs in public health, doing research, academic research. And I, near that point, had experienced yet another, again, bright neon signs. I basically experienced highs, but this time, instead of experience it for 2 days, like just maybe a day or 2, it was a full week-long period of hives, 24/7.
Oh my gosh.
For an entire week, full body coverage of hives. My ears, my eyes, my face, every single inch of my body was covered in hives. Almost like everything was just becoming inflamed almost.
Yeah. Stress is so powerful.
Stress, exactly.
Yeah.
And the body just is so intelligent in its way of telling you that something's not right.
Yeah.
So during that week, I went into the emergency room 3 times.
Wow.
And it was debilitating. I couldn't do anything. I couldn't leave the house. I couldn't go to the grocery store with my face covered in hives. It was extremely debilitating. And it was that moment that I remember reaching out to one of my girlfriends at the time and said, you know what, I've been going to these doctors. I've been going to the Western medical services and resources, and nothing is working. They're just giving me steroids and just really what it was doing was just putting a carpet and a band-aid over the issue. And the hives would still come back even when they said it would stop. So I finally went to a practitioner. She does muscle reading, and she specializes in allergies. And I'm so grateful to this friend who actually guided me to go to this woman, because at that session I was so nervous. I was at a loss for what to do. And so I felt this was like my only hope. Like, I have to seek out alternative health solutions.
Were
And
you at the
yes.
time like skeptical, or was there a resistance there to that?
No, I actually was very open to it. I simply hadn't found a need to utilize any of those resources up until that point. But I did know about it. I, in fact, was a teaching assistant for a course on complementary alternative health practices.
Oh, amazing.
And so going to this practitioner, she did muscle reading. She said, okay, these are the things that you should avoid at the moment. And these are the things that you should include in your diet. She gave me some dietary supplements, and she said, starting this evening, by the end of the night, your hives will stop.
Wow.
I took that with a grain of salt after having been.
So what did this muscle testing look like, or this muscle reading?
Yeah, so she basically had me lie down and had my arm up, and she basically had one of her hands on one part of my body, or actually she was working in different areas of my body, but allowing the body's the arm to respond in such a way in which it was almost like giving her yes no answers to things. And so she was intuitively feeling into the wisdom of the body to connect with the organs and every aspect of the biological body, to understand what was happening and what part of the body needed assistance and attention.
Wow.
I didn't know very much about what she was doing, but I only knew that this was my last hope at that moment. And I right away began changing my diet. And just as she had said, the hives that had been with me for an entire 7 days, 24 hours a day, finally subsided.
Wow.
Overnight?
Yes.
Holy moly. And this was just
Yes.
based off of a dietary change. Had you started taking the supplements at that point?
I started that evening, actually.
Oh, wow.
And, I was shocked. I was I was astounded by the effectiveness of what that session had on my hives. And so I went with it. I thought, you know what, what she told me, the one person who's told me something that actually was true, I'm going to just go with the flow and see where this takes me. And at that moment, my entire just perspective on the effectiveness, the validity of complementary alternative and integrated medicine was just that much more powerful. And I thought, okay, this could be it. This could really be what helps me. Essentially, what culminated in my Saturn return, that was basically the big neon sign just kept going for about a year.
It's relentless.
It was relentless because something was calling me to shift, to change, to move in a different direction, to stop what I was doing. But what I didn't share as well is that there was also a moment in that period of my Saturn return that I was also hospitalized in ICU for, I believe it was 4 days in the hospital, which led to me experiencing medical debt for the first time in my life, something that I had studied in public health textbooks. I experienced firsthand almost
Wow.
and nearly everything that I had studied in public health school. I was
Came true.
experiencing, oh my
Oh my
gosh,
gosh.
I was experiencing firsthand having sort of this insurance that was because I was working part-time at that moment that I was hospitalized for an infection or no, it was for an allergic reaction. Sorry, there was an allergic reaction to an antibiotic that I took.
Wow.
So the amount of stress that my body could take was just overflowing. It couldn't take anymore. It was a pretty intense Saturn return. And I know that not everybody has a very intense Saturn return, but mine was, I think mine needed to be so in your face, like Charlene, we're trying to give you a message here. Please listen.
Yeah.
Listen. And finally, I realized there was a period, and I can't quite pinpoint the moment my mind just sort of awakened to what was actually happening, which were these other layers and aspects of my being, as you mentioned, Ellen, earlier on, that relates to ancestral healing, that relates to so many other sort of like breaking down of the conditionings that, I grew up with. There's just so much there, but I can't quite pinpoint that moment. But what I can tell you is that everything started to get better. And I began to see signs. And I think that was how I started to just listen, was slowing down. And I decided, you know what? I think I told my girlfriends, my closest girlfriends at the time, that this is it. Like, this is, an FU to everything in my life that's led to this. It doesn't work for me. It's not working. So I'm just going to enjoy my life. I'm just going to really live it in a way that feels good. And I have to actually give thanks and gratitude to this Rumi quote that was almost like my lifeboat during this very difficult part of my life, which was, don't move the way fear makes you move. Move the way joy makes you move. Move the way love makes you move. That was my guiding light. Those were my guiding principles during my Saturn return. And just by following those words and just following that guidance, it slowly led me to this experience of deep transformation, of self-transformation and major introspection. And I don't think I'm the same person that I was even at that moment. I am still same at my core, but it was such a major shedding of this thick layer of who I thought I needed to be, who I thought I should be, what I thought I should be doing at that point in my life. And it's led me to a very, beautiful and transformative period of just growth and exploration. I remember beginning to seek out different practices. I started to learn about tarot. I started to learn about different divinatory practices. I started to be very drawn to crystals and minerals. I even started to learn about Reiki, and started to receive healing work through a variety of practitioners. And that just one by one led me to this path of transformation and self-discovery. What I've realized now is that transformation doesn't stop. It doesn't end.
It's so true.
I gotta say, maybe, 7 years, nearly 7 years or so after my Saturn return, I am still transforming to this very day every year.
Yeah.
So it's not it doesn't start and then, okay, when you get to the end of the road or the door, it's over and you can just sit back on the couch and breathe and think, thank goodness that's over and done with,
Yeah, right.
Totally.
The next time it comes around, it's so much harder, and you're like, man, I thought I'd kick this.
Yeah.
Here we go again.
I'm curious, like, as you were going through your Saturn return and losing your maternal grandmother, I always find it, I mean, I have my own sort of theories, having experienced like a close death in my family, like losing my dad when I was younger. But I'm curious, as you were talking about going into like ancestral healing and really needing to like heal on behalf of your family lines, did you find that your maternal grandmother, did she play a role in
Yeah.
that?
Absolutely. She, now that I've really had many years to think back to my experiences with her, I remember like every experience that and vivid, like visual memory that I have of being with her. I felt like she was just giving me messages and information, things that I didn't know at the time were messages, things, practices that she would be doing, and I would just be observing her in her ritual practice, in her practices of devotion to self. We and I, well, I grew up Buddhist in my family, and my maternal grandmother was such a great teacher for me of these ritualistic practices that in English had no name. Um, and so I didn't see any of those things that she had done as ritual, as magical practice. And now that I've actually been able to learn the vocabulary and understand language in English, I'm realizing now, oh my gosh, that's what my grandmother was doing, my entire life growing up. I just didn't know it had a name or that there was meaning behind it.
Wow.
And even after she had passed, she would frequently come to me in dreams. And during one of the we basically in Buddhist tradition have this gathering at home of the deceased, of our loved ones who've passed, where we come together, we have a lot of food, and it's almost like celebration of that person's life, because that individual and the spirit of that individual will come and visit the home one final time before they pass on. And so I remember actually through the very corners of my eye seeing my grandmother.
Wow.
And it was the very first experience that in any way I don't typically have these experiences, but it felt so visceral, and I was just suspended in awe and disbelief. And it was at that moment that I knew, wow, she's with me, and she just will show up in many different ways. And I just know her to be one of my very beloved spirit guides now.
That's so fantastic. I love that she appears so tangibly to you, because
Yeah.
I don't know, like I don't think my dad has shown up in that way, but I've had experiences where through others, through other people with, mediumship gifts and things like that, he'll come through, and also through dreams and things like that too. But wow, that's really powerful to have had that experience,
Thank you, Ellen. I wanted to share that, when I was 9, my father actually also passed.
Oh wow.
And he was the very first experience of a death in a family that was so close, to my family. He was my father. I remember that death in a very different way than I experienced the passing of my grandmother. The passing of my father at the age of 9 was very challenging to just cope with, even as a child. I remember having a very difficult time sort of understanding what that meant. And it took me many years of just grief to really fully accept what had happened. And so with the passing of my grandmother now in my mid-20s, I experienced passing and loss in such a different way, and it was so much more profound. It hit me. Wow. And I remember I didn't have such a visceral experience like that when my dad had passed. But it wasn't until my mid to late 20s that I then began to develop a connection with his spirit as well. So that was when, as altogether as as ancestors, that I began to really devote myself into connection and remembering.
Wow. I really do believe that they come through. It's like, it's not that they're not present until a moment in your life, but I do find that like when that moment arrives, you start going back in time and realizing like, oh my gosh, they've been talking to me all this time. Yeah. And I just wasn't in the place to be able to receive it until later. But then I definitely experienced this sort of this sudden kind of like as I began to heal myself and connect, like I was able to connect in with my dad's spirit more and more, and then became the remembering, as you're talking about, of all these different instances throughout my life. Like some of them were kind of near death incidences that I sort of brushed off before.
Oh my gosh. I remember the first time you told me one of those stories, I was like, you can't be serious right now.
Yeah.
It was such a crazy story.
Yeah. And to me, I realized like, oh, it was him. It was him. And I believe now his parents, like my paternal grandmother and grandfather, that were guiding me this entire time and kind of saving my ass throughout my entire life, But yeah, it's so powerful when you're able to connect in that way. And it sort of brings me to what you're doing now as being, again, I love the way you describe yourself, a light worker of spaces, because I really do. I wonder if experiencing grief at such a young age, experiencing death, having to process that, even in the limited ways that you were able to as a young child, and then later on, in your 20s, becoming more and more in touch with the energy around us, in the space around us. Like, I always find that our life experiences, they're never coincidental, right? And it always pushes you into, I hate to use the word purpose, because it's not really about, I don't really see work as your purpose, but it's the thing that you are able to bring into the world because of your experiences. Can you talk a little bit about what brought you into creating êtrechar?
Yes, absolutely. While I haven't actually considered the connection between the experience of the passing of a loved one, the work of engaging with our ancestors, into the work that I do now, what I do know is that in a very similar way, they've sort of been guiding me all along. All along, they've been guiding me. And so I remember, in the moment that I realized that I needed to leave the field of public health, and I knew that this wasn't what I was meant to do in my life, there was a very clear recognition that I needed to step into my life purpose, into my dharma. And in doing so, it was my brother who actually helped me connect me with someone who then started my work in doing interior design, in doing project management for construction renovation projects. And but the difference is that the work was dedicated and devoted to, working with developers, working in the area of multifamily homes and buildings. I recognized right away that there was just this natural ability that I had, not only with being able to visualize transformation, but to visualize potential in spaces, and the skill of managing teams came through from my public health career.
Wow.
I felt deep down in my heart after, engaging with that work, that this wasn't who I was. That while the work was creative and it allowed for creative expression, which is what my soul was so desperate and call forth, the space of doing it in that way, where corners were cut, where finishes were chosen because it fit the budget, which was very, very tight and small budget. And there was no consideration for the people who actually live in those spaces. And so space was maximized to the utmost. So if there was, 100 square feet, we're going to put that 100 square feet and make it into 5 different things,
Wow. So limiting.
Yeah. And so I realized I needed to pivot from that industry. And so the pivot that I made was basically a period of actually a couple of years where I really had to just return and come back to myself, and which is also part of the story of transformation for me. And so the work of êtrechar is an embodiment of that transformation of self. It is a reflection of the transformation that I have experienced firsthand, and what I've witnessed. And in doing so, the purpose of my work is to be a reflection to others of transformation, of growth. And so being in the space of home, I realized, okay, there's something special about this working in homes. It's written in my astrological chart. It's written in the stars for me. And I know it is part of my dharma to work in the arena that is the sacred space of our home. But when you think about home, the first thing that comes to mind is the house in which we live in, the roof in which we live under, whether that be an apartment building or, a bedroom in a house or a house in itself. The experience of transformation actually led me to realize and learn that our home is also our body. Our home is also the land in which the home actually sits above, right? And so it was through periods of observation, reflection, and just listening and observing my natural surroundings, and also engaging with a number of different spiritual teachers during that time, I realized that I had to come back to myself in the most authentic form possible. And so in order to know what it was that I needed to share with this world, in order to know what that gift is, I needed to know who I was.
Right.
And the process of knowing who you are requires you to enter this space of quiet. It's a very quiet space in which you remove any and all mental distractions, any and all visual distractions around you, because for me at least, I am so influenced by what I see because I'm so visually stimulated. I'm a very visual person. and clairvoyant at that. And so I almost had to return to the darkness of my sacral chakra.
Mm-hmm.
And it was from that sacred space that I had to relearn and discover who I was and remember truly. And so that allowed me to realize, okay, êtrechar has even in itself gone through periods of transformation. It doesn't look now in the way that it looks a year ago or 2 years ago. I remember when I was developing the offerings of my work, the first thing I thought was, okay, well, how do I bring in money, right? What's the first thing I need to do? How do I bring in sort of like and funnel currency and money to help sustain and support the business? And so I thought, well, why don't I divvy up my work into different aspects and do space clearings and also offer feng shui sessions and also do this full service design experience that I wanted to offer and that I call at this moment integrative earth design. And so I thought, okay, the feng shui and the space clearing was a way to bring in money while that could sustain the the interior design experience that I wanted to share with the world. It wasn't soon after I realized that decision to do so came from a place of fear, and it came from a place of ego. Ego just manifesting by way of just being afraid that I wasn't good enough, manifesting in a way that just was, what if this doesn't work? Then I can fall back on this as a default.
God, this resonates so much with me.
Yes.
No, I was like, I'm going through the same thing right now. It's so crazy.
And so what I realized was, I was like, oh my gosh, this is what I'm doing. I'm actually moving into the development and the creation of this very sacred gift with fear at the very forefront of the ship that I'm moving in. And
100%, yeah.
I had to go back to my Rumi quote that just stayed with me, you know, like coming back to love and coming back to joy. And even as I would talk about the work in relationship to, okay, I'm only doing feng shui sessions, or then I would also offer space clearing sessions, I could feel my throat tightening. I could feel it in my voice now. But when I speak about the design experience that is integrative earth design, there was an opening of my voice, and there was an opening and just flow within my voice that I could feel. And so it basically was a period of an entire year that I went into this period of, okay, let me then refine this work, this offering. Let me just come down and return to who I am and what it is I'm supposed to do, and really encapsulate it with faith and with just trust, because it was something that I knew I hadn't seen before. I couldn't fall back on seeking out teachers to do a training and get certified in something, and then that person would tell me what I need to do. It wasn't so easy. And I knew at that moment during that year that it wasn't going to be easy. That it wasn't just going to come to me like it was served on a tray of dogma, holding it together. So the process of the development of my offering involved knowing who I was at my core, but also learning so much more about myself through human design, through astrology, through astrocartography. And it was through all of these ancient languages that helped to piece together who I was. And it helped me to really gain a much clearer understanding of what it is I'm here to do, how it is I can actually step into my full potential and just step into truly who I was, rather than looking outward and externally for for my guidance, and I think that was a very hard lesson for me during my period of like just transformation. I was going outside of me at any point that I could for answers. And where I ended up at after many years of doing that and seeking out people to give readings for me, to tell me what I needed to know, it's like to show me how I needed to, formulate this gift and this concept that I had. I realized at this moment, and even as early as last year, that I had to do it for myself and that I couldn't go to anybody but myself. And it's in that moment when you know that you can turn to your inner wisdom, that what you reflect is a authentic reflection of who you are, rather than a reflection of your external surroundings and your external influences. And it was at that moment that I realized, oh my gosh, this is who I am. And I had to work through this illusion of this veil of fear around showing up as who I was, because of this deeply ingrained fear of speaking my truth, which comes through from past life experiences as well. So I had to work through that. And again, like I mentioned, every aspect of êtrechar is a reflection of growth on so many levels. And at its core it's returning home to who you are at your core. And so what I've been able to do is really allow the work, allow the business, allow this energetic entity to speak to me when it is time. So in doing so, I had to embrace the unknown. And so at every moment, at every step, I was literally walking into a field in a forest, but like a field of mist that surrounds me. And I could only see as far as what was directly in front of me, which were my feet, right? So that's what êtrechar, at least the process of its manifestation into this space feels like. And so it's something that's growing constantly, it's changing, it's impermanent, and I realize that I am a student of this energetic, entity. And so I then just had to learn to listen to it and to allow it to show up when it was ready to be shared, when it's ready to be expressed, and in which way it's ready to be expressed. So rather than begin the development of my business with a business plan. And I can't tell you how many people have told me start with a business plan.
I know. I feel like that question gets thrown at me all the time. And I'm like, the universe, man, plan all you want.
I cannot tell you how many times I attempted to write a business plan and never has it come to completion. And it's because I realize that the energy in which I'm working with needs to operate outside of the structures that we're used to. It needs to operate outside of all of those structures. It needs to come into form and into shape in its own way. And what I realized is like what I had to embrace was being different. I had to embrace diversity within myself and not being afraid of reflecting that to others, and not being afraid of being the first or the only person to talk about our home in this way, or to talk about our practices within our home in ways that is not normal, or at least normal in the mainstream, right, as accepted.
So sorry to interrupt you. I'm just curious, like, as you were going through this process of reconnecting with your sacral chakra and like going within and exploring and really communicating, with the universe as this energetic entity was being born, were you also working with other healers through other modalities, or did you like go fully inside and you were like, whatever happens, and I'm just going to go super deep?
Mm. So what happened for me and the way that it played out was I did seek out practitioners with the intention that it wasn't to tell me what I needed to do in how to develop my business or what it was going to be. It was diving into aspects of, womb healing, ancestral
Mm.
healing, reconnecting with my ancestors, reconnecting with myself,
Mm.
connecting with past lives, and being open and aware of karmic cycles that were playing out through all this time. So every single practitioner that I saw, every spiritual teacher that I came across held a single lesson, a gem, a pearl of wisdom that basically helped to guide me to where I was. So it's not to say that the people that you seek out don't serve a purpose. In fact, they absolutely do serve a purpose. And there's always, a reason for everything. And so if you're drawn to someone, there's a message there for you, there's guidance there for you. And it's up to you. And in this case, it was up to me to be open to being a student in that moment, to realize, okay, what I'm doing may not have a direct visual relationship to the development of my work, but it's doing the work of helping me return to who I am at my
Yeah.
core. And in doing so, the work, the creative expression becomes an expression, a reflection of that core of who you are.
Mm.
So I decided early on that I wasn't going to just jump head into starting a business and just trying to, bring money in. I had to step into full unknown territory. I had to step into full releasing of my control of everything and shift from the mindset of doing into the mindset of truly just being. So that's
Mm.
exactly what I did. I just was being in presence with who I was. And so as a result, the work is a creative reflection of who I am as a result.
I love the way you had used the metaphor about like being in a forest surrounded by mist and only being able to see your feet in front of you.
That's how I feel all the time.
Yeah, and I actually wonder, and I'm like wondering out loud, even for myself right now, if that is really what so much of this inner work is about, is getting comfortable with that space of unknowing. And I mean, to me, I've been working so hard on like surrendering and trusting and like letting go and allowing the universe to kind of co-create with me and to reveal to me where it is I need to go, and also kind of it's like it's happening sort of in the external and the internal at the same time. So it's like I feel like I'm being led, but as I'm being led, I'm also being shown deeper aspects of myself that I may not have ever known or seen before. And it's concurrent. And I feel like the deeper I go within myself, the more I do trust the universe to hold me and to kind of guide me to where I need to go. And all these like, I'm definitely, I think, being from a creative background, having these big lofty visions of what it is I want to create has always been sort of like my thing. And I'm realizing now in my creative process and in also unpacking who I am and really healing through this whole journey of like learning and being still and just learning how to be and learning how to trust. It's like, how do I say it? It's like I feel like I'm letting go of these huge lofty visions and realizing that I'm it's like it came to me in a meditation the other day where I'm literally building the actual bricks right now and not the house that I thought I was building. I'm like building the units that are going to be making the house. And I can only see, literally my toes right now. I don't even know really where I'm being guided, but one by one, these bricks are being created, and I'm stacking these bricks together, and it's like the house is being created slowly as a result of me focusing just on these bricks. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. 100%. And as you were speaking, the word let go was actually something that I knew I needed to make a mental note to bring that up, because the magic lies within that moment in which you release that grand vision of what the work could be and could look like, is the moment in which you allow the energies of the universe to come together to show you the how. So it was in releasing the control of what this could be, right? What my company could be. I had to completely let go of it in order for it to truly be expressed as its own energetic entity, as its own energetic being, as its own creative expression. And I am merely a reflection and a conduit for its expression. And I have to tell you, that's what you're describing, what you're both describing, is exactly what I felt in the process of developing my company and this creative offering that I have. It was, for the most part, I thought, oh my gosh, like I have no idea what's going to happen. There were so many moments where I was second guessing and doubting. The process of doing this work isn't without all of those feelings, the fear, the doubt, the external reflection of questions from, whether it be my family or just the world reflecting to you, hey, why don't you get a job? Or like when are you gonna start applying for work?
Totally. That's constantly in the air.
So it's truly like the work, and I don't know if I feel this is true for the both of you, but we are in the period of the Aquarian age, and what is to be born in the period of the Aquarian age, I feel deeply must be born outside of the systems of, the dogmas of what we've been operating on for so many years and for so many centuries, right? So it has to be different. The method has to be different. The process has to be different. And by different, I mean it has to be authentic to who you are as an expression. And so releasing and letting go of that control because of fear was, I think, and still is one of the most challenging things that I experience during this process. But I have to tell you that while you're on that road, in that forest, surrounded by mist, at your core that there is a push, there is something drawing you towards a direction that you may not see, but you're moving somewhere. And you just have to have full trust and lean into the trust and lean into the unknown, because you are in that moment dancing within the void. And so you have to, in that space, release control and release hold and attachment on what something could look like or what something could be or should be. Because it's not allowing the full creative expression to come forth. And so all along the way, in my experience, there has just been divine alignment, and abundance, I tell you, will show up in so many forms. And sometimes I think, oh my gosh, my money's running out, like this is it. And something always comes through in a way that I never expected it to. So whether that form of abundance comes through in the form of a friendship, in the form of a connection, of a network, or in the form of your own mother, or in the form of your family or your partner, or even in the trees or the messages that come through to you, those are the moments that have then supported me and as a result reflected back in me trust that there is something bigger and greater than me that is at work here, and I am simply surrendering to that experience of creation at its core, you know.
You wrote something that I really want to read because it's just so beautiful, and it's on your blog. It's called Receiving, and I think you wrote it on July 1st, for fairly recently. And so I'm just going to read this out loud because I feel like it sort of encapsulates kind of what we've been talking about. And again, I just find it so beautiful. Which actually, I think all of your writing that you put on your website is like really beautiful nuggets to just meditate on. So you write, the moments when I can hear and I'm listening are when I'm in nature or daydreaming. The natural world around you awakens like a living and breathing landscape. The messages, they are subtle and fleeting, like that of a whisper. In order to hear them, you have to listen so closely, carefully, and quietly with the curiosity and wonder of a child. This is the magic of the natural world and the first step to remembering. And I just find this so, first of all, true. And I think this focus on remembering who you are, being able to open up, to receive, and to be guided back to who you are, and then having your spaces be a reflection of who you are truly at your core, so that your spaces also become supportive and nurturing containers for you to go even deeper than. It's like, I don't know, there's just something so beautiful and cooperative and cyclical and I don't know, it's I don't have the words for it, but it's like a feeling that I have where I'm like, this is what balance is, you know.
It's funny, as you read that, I remember experiencing a number of breathwork courses with you, Ellen. and in every single experience that I've had with you doing breath work, you always bring and engage the inner child. And interestingly, it's actually was through that process of actually doing the breath work with you that I realized, okay, wow, this is part of the story. This is part of the experience. And I know I haven't dived into the actual work just yet after talking so much about how I've landed here. But I think you naturally speak to it here, and I think it's a natural transition to make. But the beauty of the work that I find, and I'm in constant awe of it because I am a student and as well as teacher of it, is that the home, as I mentioned, one of the grounding and foundational perspectives, frameworks that I work with in integrative earth design is that you are a reflection of your home. Your home is a direct reflection of the land as well. So there is a continual connection. There is no separation. There's no division. As much as our eyes will tell us there is, on an energetic level, there is no separation between you, your space, your home, and the land. And so as a result, the work itself is stepping into communication with the home as sacred space. It's transforming the home into sacred space. And in that communication, which can take place through so many different modalities, you begin to not only reconnect with yourself, but you begin to see how visually and how physically the home begins to communicate with you. And as a result, the land in itself feels that and is also communicating with you. And so you're really, in doing this work, you are devoting yourself to you, to the natural world, and returning to a place of remembering that there is no separation between us and this land that we live on. And so, at its core, it is to help people remember that your home is a reflection of you, that your external world, the natural world, is a reflection of you. And in doing so, I have fun with magic, and magic is part of the work in the different modalities that is used to bring about transformation, to bring about growth, and to engage in this communication with your home.
Yeah, that's super fascinating. I'm so glad that you mentioned that, because as I was looking through some of the modalities that you work with, I noticed that you also work with Japanese wabi-sabi philosophy, and I've never come across that before, and I would love to hear more about it.
Yeah, absolutely. So wabi-sabi originates in Japan, and it's basically a worldview, it's a perspective, it's a philosophy in itself. It's a way of living within itself that gives attention and respect and honor to the impermanence of our natural world, and to the imperfection that is also a result of it. And the way in which I weave wabi sabi into my work is understanding that in the process of building, in the process of designing, in the process of building, that I'm working with materials that are impermanent in nature, that I'm working with the energetics of a space that will not be permanently perfect in that corner of the home or in the center of the home. So the home is in itself is living and breathing and impermanent within its core, just as we are at our core.
It's like this constant embrace of change and not being afraid of it, and really stepping into it and leaning into it.
Absolutely. Yes. I this is where I want to make that connection now back to what you mentioned earlier, Ellen, about experiencing, death in your life. I feel that experiencing the passing of loved ones at such an early age, and even like throughout my life, has been such a very physical example of getting to know what it feels like to experience loss, and what it feels like and what it looks like in our natural world as well. This process and cyclical experience of life and death. And so it's interesting, but it really does come back to the work in itself as well.
Oh, totally. And I just find that it's so interesting that your work is focused on these spaces and our relationship to the land, our relationship to the home, as being sort of reflections of our relationships to ourselves. I just find that, like, as humans, we struggle so much with attachment and not wanting to let things go. And when you think about the home, first of all, so many people are attached to their home and to the things that they hold within their homes. And I feel like what we've been talking about is this allowance of the home to constantly sort of shift and change as you are shifting and changing and deepening. And the whole practice of this, almost like the practice is your life, really. It's letting go of those attachments and even the things that you have within your home. There's just something really fascinating and profound about that. It's like you're working with this container of space that holds things, and yet I feel like the whole basis or foundation of this practice is to learn also how to let go of the things, you know what I mean, of the attachments, but to just, you know what I mean, like exist in the change, exist and be okay in not knowing, and in that change, in that constant process of change.
That is beautiful, the way in which you described it. I want to say that, I can tell you on so many levels that I have had to be faced with that experience of letting go, right? Oh my gosh, I have so much clothes you can't believe. I mean, as a really truly, like, as an appropriate example of what I mean by letting go is the very first year I was dating my now partner. He said to me, maybe about a year into our relationship, you know what? I don't think I've seen you wear one outfit twice in the year that I've been with you. So it goes to show how much I own in terms of just clothing. And I see clothing as such a beautiful creative expression of oneself.
Yeah.
And so it's that I know and I've accepted is deeply a part of who I am. But one of the interesting things about letting go is I've had to confront that myself in a very intimate way, of just realizing how much I was holding on to from when I was a freshman in college, even, I was holding on to so many things. And in doing so, I wasn't allowing myself the space to receive and the space to bring in new energies and new opportunities and new perspectives and experiences. So I eventually did go through the process of, I mean, quite literally, like what now feels like 2 years long, a period of just going through my clothes, decluttering, releasing. And I have to tell you that that process does not have to happen in a week. It doesn't have to happen in a month. It will happen at a time and at a pace that is appropriate and supportive for who you are. And so for me, to be quite frank, it's been a 2-year process. And it doesn't.
Yeah, it's so important, though, what you mentioned about clearing space and room for new energies and things to come into your life, because I feel like along my journey, especially, I feel like I'm in a constant process of purging almost in different ways. And as I do that, like letting material things go, but it's like I feel at the same time that there's this sort of uncertainty around sometimes getting rid of all of these things. It also makes me feel lighter, and I know that that process itself is a huge part of the work, just sort of like releasing these material things that I don't need, that are taking up clutter in my life, and allowing myself to trust that what I need will find me when I need it.
That's beautifully said. Yeah. Currently I'm living in the home that has been sort of the home in which I am able to implement integrative earth design. And in this home that I've designed, alongside my partner, he was the architect and builder of this home. I realized that in doing so, every single space has been carved to be flexible, to be open to change. And in terms of compartments, because as you know, I remember earlier in this conversation, like our home holds things, and it's a place where you store things, right? I realized that in the design of this particular home that I'm in, that we didn't want to go excessive with the amount of storage there was, because the space that we would then allocate for storage would be invitation to hold on to more things.
And where there's room, you put stuff.
Exactly.
I've found that many times.
Exactly. Oh my gosh. You give me a countertop, I will fill it with, with beautiful things at that, but I will fill the space. But it's interesting because this home has been such a great teacher of sort of decluttering, and a great teacher of being intentional about what we bring into our home. So our kitchen, for example, is designed in such a way in which there is just an appropriate amount of space for us as a couple to carry and contain the vessels in which we will use for meals and dinners, breakfast and whatnot. Our closets are not overly, sized where we're walking in and it's like full on storage from floor to ceiling. It's just the right amount, because we were intentional about the home being a teacher for us to bring in items that we intentionally bring, that we know is a true reflection of who we are, because there is such an easy tendency, even in my own experience, to see something that is beautiful that people share on Instagram or people share through marketing and whatnot, and you're like, oh my God, I want that. And then I end up with 5 different varieties of that one thing. And I don't need 5 different varieties of that one thing. I just need the one that I treasure and that has a story. But in choosing to live that way, you're also choosing an experience in which those items and those treasures come to you when they're ready to find you.
I love that. I love that. That, man, it's like the conqueror or the conquester versus the receiver. Like I'm learning right now so hard how to be the receiver, because I'm so used to being the one who's going out and finding, going out and sourcing, going out and, accumulating. Wow. Thank you for that. That was like profound.
You're welcome.
We always love to ask everyone we talk to, what is the one piece of wisdom that they are just so grateful to live their life by now, and the one thing that they just kind of like, if you could have one tattoo on your body, what would that thing be?
Oh my gosh, that's such a great question, and also so challenging for me, because I would have the hardest time picking the one tattoo that I would have on me as an expression of who I was, because I'm such a visual person. What is one wisdom? I think that what has helped ground me during this time has been to remember that in those moments in which you feel alone, in which you feel the world is battling against you, in which you feel you're the only person, and like just saying this one or sharing this expression of who you are, just know that your uniqueness and your expression is meant to be shared. and that in the depth of feeling alone, you actually never are, because everything around you is speaking to you. You only need to be open in your heart to the messages that they have to share with you. And it is always at your own time, at your own pace, that those messages will come through. The universe, as they say, will, work to bring you the opportunities and the individuals that are here to support you. And you simply have to be open and willing.
Wow.
Thank you.
I love that so much.
Yeah.
I really needed to hear that today too. Thank you.
You're so welcome.
This whole conversation, I feel like, is so divine timing for me. So, man, thank you. Thank you so much for being with us and for sharing your life and your experiences, your wisdom, all this stuff. I mean, I'm just so excited to see where êtrechar takes you and how it continues to kind of morph and change and shift and grow with you. And just really, really grateful to be in connection.
Yes, I am as well. Thank you both so much for this space, this beautiful sacred space, for allowing me to share this experience and my experience with you.
It's such an honor.
Music for Woo New is composed by Adam Miller.